when we go forward then from 16, which is the inner foundation, to 17, which is the ideal or light, then we get to number 18. It's the Drew. It's the going to the fullness, but also to the extremes and to the collapse. 18, you can see its symbol. It is that collapsy thing. It's still there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is Drew. So you have man is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. This then represents, is called darkness in Samoan. And remember that when they're given names to these things, we have to understand that, yes, there is a corporeal meaning, something that's easy to grasp, to understand, but there's also subtler meanings involved. And now when it comes to Hak, which is darkness, in an earlier video we talked about how darkness is not the equivalent of evil, and that darkness itself is not evil. I won't reiterate all that was said there, but what we want to know, or what we want to perceive, is that darkness is relative, just like light is relative. Yes, there's absolutes. You can you get on the O. We know from the O, if you can have darkness over here and light over here, but when you start getting them close together, it's difficult to tell. And so it is both absolute and relative at the same time, because a gray is in light relative to this, but relative to this, it's in darkness. And so, and there is this upright, this division point, this fine line, this razor's edge, where it changes from darkness to light, the midpoint. And this is represented by this, by the EAU. You have one side over here and one side over here, or the E-Safe, you have one side up here and one side there. Those lines, those crossbars, they're delineating between the two. Okay, and so the point being made here is that yes, a person can be in darkness, but there's going to be those somewhere who are darker than he is, or there's going to be darkness that's darker than what he is. No matter how dark a person gets, the darkness, there's always greater darkness, there's always depth, because the EAA tells us downward forever and upward forever. And even so, there's always going to be someone higher in light. Wherever we are in our progression, there's always somebody who's got more light and is wiser, is more loving, is more of everything than what we are, just like at the same time there are those who have less of those qualities than what we have. There is a tipping point when it becomes light from light to darkness, and yet it's still relative at the same time. And this tipping point, and the difference, that the reason this tipping point, I'm bringing it up, is because as we progress through eternity, we don't escape from Hak, because it's not a matter of escaping Hak. It's a matter of learning what Hak is, who she is as an entity, as a daughter of Jehovah, and what her role is, what her function is. And also understanding that no matter where we are, like there is a point where we have more light than we have darkness. Now we know from reading Oahspe that's grade 50. When we reach that point where we're more light than darkness, then we can ascend away from these heavens that are surrounding the earth into Etheria, which is the vast space in between all the different planets and all the different stars. And it's more rarefied up there, it's more beautiful. It's called the emancipated grades. When you get above that, when you can rise up into etheria. Not that you're an emancipated grade when you arrive at grade 50, but you're on the track to emancipation. And depending upon other developments within a person, they can go up into etheria and live in etheria at that time and resurrect as a bride or bridegroom to Jehovah and live in an emancipated state, a wholly emancipated state, emancipated from all the essentially the downward tugs of darkness and the downward tugged heart and all that. It's not that they escape the feelings of that, not that they escape the understanding of all that, but they have gained a certain mastery so that it no longer can impinge upon them and destroy them. The evil can't get in through the darkness to destroy them, because darkness still comes in, can come and go, because that's part of the emancipation. You let the darkness, you let it go where it's going to go. It's the rising above the evil. And so in the rising above the evil, we have that fine line, that delineation between light and darkness, between being able to rise up in etheria and live in an emancipated state and not being able to. So there is that absolute difference, even though we cross that and eventually rise up and ascend into etheria, we're still in darkness, relatively speaking, compared to those great eons who are beyond. But it's not really darkness per se, it's just less light. But from their point of view, we're still in darkness in a sense. But they understand it's not darkness, they understand that it's less light. And so because we're talking about the difference then between light and dark, because at a point then we become more dark than light. Resurrection and ascension is moving up so that we become more light than dark, so that we become inside. We're talking about our soul, we're talking about our spirit, we're talking about the fruits of that as we go forward, and as we're sowing, and then that becomes what we're reaping, and that becomes our fruits, and that announces to everyone. Doesn't have to be spoken. It just because of its existence, we can understand what a person's grade is. We can understand how a person can be a certain way if we have enough experience, and enough light and enough growth of knowing. Number 17, of knowing things from experience. And so when we get to number 18. Number 18 is sort of like man's reassessment time. I mean, he can look, because he had his ideal, which he experienced, and it's been going over here to its fullness. And recall at that time then that a person can understand in the collapse, whoa, I should have done this that way, or should have done this way, that way. That's essentially what Hack is about.